This is not a gaming stream, so we can't kill Grandma during this stream. I'll give a good minute or two for people to show up before getting started. No, we don't ever get into fist fights while gaming. Why would that happen? What do I think about Python and why some good programmers say it's a bad language? I don't know Python very well, but what I will say about it is that it's very, very slow for the amount of abstraction that it gives you, right? Like a language like C# or something is tremendously faster than Python. And both of those are, garbage collected, protected memory languages. So, yeah. Do you have any preference when it comes to keyboards for typing precisely? I don't know, man. I just try to use keyboards. Like people write 3D games in C# sometimes, and I doubt that you would even attempt that in Python. Let me put it that way. Did I get any feedback about what? What are people even asking about? All right, let's get started. Today, I'm going to do some more animation programming. The animator started using the system, and it's working well so far. But of course, there are some features missing, which we always knew was the case. And so I'm going to start adding those, at least one or possibly two of those. So one thing that you'll see, so once I start walking, when I let go of walking, there's a transition to idle. which is where it says, or to active, right? So it says state walking to active write. Let's maybe go look at where that happens in the file. So this is the animation file that we made previously in the stream, and then the animator has added some things to it. And you'll see there's this state walking to active write state, and when we're walking, and the game says, well, go to active, which is the active idle, right? So basically that means we've stopped walking. Then do state walking to active write. Okay, so that's all as we described last time. But of course, you'll notice there's a walking to active right and a walking to active left, and what's the deal there? And the deal there is, well, there's two different animations for going from walking to idle, and we want to switch into one or the other of those based on what time it is in the walking cycle, right? And we don't have the capability to do that yet because we haven't added it, but it should be relatively straightforward. My head's blocking the bottom left. Oh, that's a good point. I moved that for a gaming stream. All right. So as you now see at the bottom left, there's state walking to active left, right, and state walking to active right. So basically, instead of just a very simple thing here, we want to say, well, you know, if we get a go state active, we'll go here, but maybe under certain conditions, right? So I think the way there's many ways that this could happen, but I think that what I'm going to do is just enable you to put more junk on the end, like to say, you know, time. If the next word is time, then you can say 2 times. Like if the time is between 0 and 0.5 seconds, then we go to write. Otherwise, you know, if it's between 0.5 and, I don't know, 100 seconds, we'll just say the end of the animation. Then we go to left. I don't actually know how long the animation is. I suppose I could print that as well. Okay, so I think all I'm going to do to start is process this new syntax where we read in the time. And you know, later, so there's always a trade-off that you have. When you've got a totally dumb format like this, right, there's temptations. Like you might say, well, let's make it a little more like a real programming language. And instead of these two things, right, we could do it like this, where we say message go state active, and then it's less redundant because, you know, we could do something like that. And we could. I'm not going to worry about it yet. We might start doing things like that if the file gets too verbose or hard to read. But what's important right now is to actually add the capability to the animation system and make sure that works, right? And then we can do things later to make the file format cleaner if we want to. All right, so first I'm just going to compile this. Or no, I'm going to run it again, and I should get an error, right? It should complain. Yeah, so we got a complaint. Actually, we should look in the log here. So we got a complaint down here in the, it's hard for me to mouse over the log. Wait, no, those, okay, so error in line 14. Can I, okay, if I do this, I get a mouse pointer. So error in line 14, error in line 15. Why do I have printfs in the, wow, that's dumb. Those must be old from when I was trying to debug something. Let me take those out. Is it in console? Yeah. All right. Old print statements from print debugging. So the thing is, if we're in game mode, I never pop the cursor up, but if I'm in editor mode, we pop the cursor up. So that's why I'm going into the editor here. Okay, so now it's complaining, and we did a good enough job of parsing the file last time that it knows exactly what the junk is, right? So now we just say, well, maybe it's not junk, right? We'll say, well, maybe it's a time command. If it's not a time command, then it's junk. So what file was this? This was an animation. Someone who saw it, graph, right? Junk online after node name. Watch the previous stream. So if someone is asking, I want to get your thoughts on plain text data storing formats, XML, JSON, or do you just make your own? Well, look, I mean, we made our own previously on the stream, and it does exactly what we want, and it's very fast, and it takes on no dependencies, and it doesn't increase compile time, and it doesn't increase our runtime memory usage, and it's easy to debug, right? Like text formats like this are very simple. And the thing about trying to use JSON or XML or something, in addition to it being slow, it's unreadable, right? The files are just horrible to try and look at and edit. You can't give people custom smart error messages if they're editing the file by hand and they make an error in there somewhere. Your JSON parser is just going to give them a very generic error message, and that may not be helpful. Whereas here, we know exactly what's happening, so we can give error messages that are maximally helpful. And just the theory that those things save you work is not really true. Like the amount of time we're spending here parsing, actually, once we factored out our general, text file parsing thing, which is itself pretty simple, we're spending very little actual time parsing. Most of the code here is really just extracting the values once we know what we're reading. And you have to extract the values from the XML or JSON anyway, and you have to error detect that anyway. And I think in those cases, when you have a generalized format, you may end up with actually more code, right? Just to make sure that the thing you're getting out of the file is what you thought. So I don't think those are generally useful, and I don't understand why people think that they're useful. That's my summary. And given the very negative impact that they have on compile time and runtime performance and readability of your file formats, I just don't understand. The only explanation I have is that people are really bad at doing cost-benefit analyses, which we already know because even C++ programmers like exception handling, which makes no sense at all. So just everybody, if you want to go from being a typical programmer to a good programmer, the one skill to understand is weighing costs versus benefits. That is absolutely the most important thing. Anything about particular languages or styles, or do you use tabs versus spaces, all that stuff is nonsense, right? But if you can look at a problem and weigh for any given approach to that problem what the costs are versus what the benefits are, then you can do a good job if that weighing is accurate. And I think usually when people use those kinds of file formats, they haven't done that very well. Someone is saying if you wanted to not go through the trouble of parsing out a format, you could use the note syntax as an impromptu file format. Well, the thing is, this file is for end users. So we don't want this to be in the programming language, right? We don't want people to be running a compiler to edit this file. So, yeah. Okay. So, what are we going to do? So we're looking junk on line after animation tag, junk on line after target node name. So this is the thing. So here we're going to say, I'm going to add the arc here. And does add arc Yes, that returns us an arc. So this will give us an arc. So remember, an arc is a connection from one node to another that could represent a transition in the animation. And we're going to get the arc, and then we're possibly going to use the rest of the line to fill out supplemental information. So if we have a remainder, or we'll say while remainder, because maybe we want to string these together, who knows, right? So while remainder, I'm going to say remainder equals, or remainder success, new remainder equals what do we call it? Add information to arc. I don't know, arc remainder, right? So that'll parse off whatever else, whatever optional things we want to read at the end of the line. And if we don't have success, then we use the old remainder. We just ignore the value of new remainder, although maybe it's fine. Else, you know, I like to put the positive case first, so we'll do that. If success, remainder equals new remainder. So we're just going to loop until the line is done. So I got to make add information to arc. Arc and commands is a string, right? And we had our break by spaces, so command name remainder is break by spaces commands, and we want to, I believe there's no way in which this should fail because we trimmed off all the external spaces, so there should have been something here. So if command name is equal to, if it's time, otherwise, well, you know, maybe we don't, so I'm thinking back to this. Maybe what we do is we just say, like, look, this thing that we found is not a known command, right? So if we don't have success, we'll just break and we won't report an error because we're going to report a more specific error here. So we're going to say, if we don't know what the command name is, we're going to say log print. Oh, let's pass the log agent. This is just, the log agent is just the string that we use to identify ourselves. So we'll use pass that and say, now let's pass the handler because we want the line number. And we'll just say unknown commands at line. We'll say an error. We'll say, make sure clear it's an error. Unknown command whatever at line whatever. Commands and handler.line number. This may not be a very good error message, but whatevs. So otherwise, if we know what it is, oh, and return false. False. Okay. We have data flow that tries to make sure you don't return from the function without returning a value, like a not all control paths return a value thing, but it doesn't understand this switch statement last I checked. So we need to do this. Okay, so if it's a time command, we will say string A is break by spaces. String A rest, break by spaces remainder, and string B RHS. Okay, so that should give us two things, and if RHS2 is not empty, then we complain. Oh no. Right, okay, so we want to return remainder is a string and success is a bool. And we'll must that. So the remainder is we'll just return remainder. Or no, we'll do. I'm shadowing a remainder with another remainder here. No, wait, that's a return. Okay. We'll return commands because we didn't handle them. And here we will do that too. And here we will return RHS2 is not a very good name, but so assuming we succeeded, well, I'll say what do I want to say? Because I'm going to say, I'll call it success. Success is true, and we're going to return this success. So now we want to load float numbers from there. Here. And we will say string to float. All right, so that returns a result, success, and remainder. Oh, you know, yeah, okay, let's just do this, since we get remainders. Instead of what we did up here, we'll say float A, success A, remainder A is string to float, remainder, and then float B, success B, remainder B, remainder A, right? So if remainder A well, we'll do this. If we didn't get if no success A, tell I'm tired today. If that was not successful, we say log print error. Let's say error at line, whatever. Let's be consistent about it. What happened there? Error at line, whatever. Unable to parse the first argument to time as a floating point number. Text was so so otherwise we do the same thing. Except now I'm in a sub block with my new variables. Well, we'll just do this. So we'll do a string to float from remainder A, and if not success B, parse the seconds. All right. Cool. We need to do this. So if we got success, then so we're just going to print for now that we did that. Checking information to arc, given text file. Okay, well that's easy. Really? Did I mess that up? Oh. What am I doing? I am so tired. Okay, look, first of all, we're just going to do this. You know what? We're going to do this. Undeclared log agent. That should be handler.log agent. RHS2. You know, some days I sit down and I'm really sharp, and some days I'm a little muddled and do things back and forth a few different ways. This is the latter kind of day. Okay, what was going on? RHS2. There's no longer an RHS2. There is now a... Oh. So we'll call it this. You know, I feel like maybe it should be a language primitive, that you have a way to say, assign my thing outward by a scope, or... No, you don't exactly want that, but maybe like it looks like I'm declaring this, but it's really the one from the outer scope. I don't know, because anytime you end up in a multivariable assignment like this, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to do it this way. So the funny thing is the syntax is always declare all three or just assign all three. So right now we're trying to declare all three, and two of them are new. So I could actually do this. I could just get rid of the temporaries by doing that, and we're not declaring anything, and success B is up there, and we're here, and we get rid of that. Okay. Still no RHS2 because that's called remainder B. I forget my handler dot so much. And then command. It's not command, it's finally. All right, well, success, 0 to 0.5 and 0.5 to 100. So that worked the first time, and we extracted our values, and it's all good. Took me a little bit to actually get it to parse, but once it parsed, it worked. So, let me grab a little bit of water, and then we're kind of going to come back and actually put that information somewhere. Okay, so previously, going back to the animation graph, so previously anytime you mentioned a state transition before you had this time keyword, it would just go there always, right? So we just want to add information that says, oh, this particular transition is conditional And the conditionality of it is based on time right now. And we're going to make it an enum because we're probably going to add other kinds of conditions. So let's go to the definition of an arc, which is here. I'm going to say condition, well, it's going to default to none, and so these two variables will only be used by anyone if we're conditioned on time. So I'm going to say condition is an enum of none and time interval, right? And then I'll say using condition. See if that works. Oh, I'm in C++ here. We're not in C++. We put it there. All right. So that's working so far. I'm using LLVM today, so it's taken longer to compile. Let me switch that back. Oh. What am I doing? Playing too much PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds has fried my brain. I can't even open the right files. All right. Faster compile times. So, all right, well, we haven't actually done anything. We've made a place to put these numbers. So now when we go to add information to arc, we will say, so now the thing I was saying before about like loading XML or loading JSON is that XML, for example, doesn't know what your data format is supposed to be, right? So if you had XML for some time command that takes arguments, I still have to do this checking that those arguments are there in that file, right? And I still have to give useful error messages to the end user so that they know what the hell is going on, right? So it's basically the same amount of code. It's just that now I have a giant XML dependency in an unreadable file, right? So that's what I'm saying. You have to, the essence of what's going on here, you have to do no matter what. You have to check that both arguments are there. If one of them is wrong, you have to tell the user what is wrong and why. Otherwise, you have a frustratingly unusable system, which actually is one of the things that maybe tends to happen when people try to rely on a file format like that and make it magical. All right, so here's what we're going to say. We're going to say, first of all, if arc.condition is not equal to none, then we're going to log print you know, I don't like typing handler.logagent all the time, so I'm going to go here, agent is handler.logagent. All right, so we're going to print error in line, at line, whatever. Attempt to put a time condition onto an arc, but a condition was already set. Yeah, whatever. Okay, so if our condition was none, then we can set it. So we'll say condition, or arc.condition is arc.time interval, arc.time 0 equals float A, arc.time 1 equals float B. Right, whoops. So now we just have to use this. And so any questions before I go on to the next part? Because the next part is a little bit different from what we just did. People are talking about Scala in the chat. Okay, I don't see. People are just talking about JavaScript. I don't know. I don't know what's going on in the chat. Okay, so now, so an arc is basically a way of going from one state of player animation or character animation to another state. We covered it, so if you go on YouTube, there's like 6 parts to this series so far of varying lengths, I think. It says, it's called Animation Control. Game Engine Programming Animation Control. Somebody can probably link you to it, and we explain in more detail, and you can see it implemented, so it'll make sense. What are your thoughts on nested if statements? Like, what is your max depth? I don't care. I mean, if the problem requires nested if statements, then that's what I type, right? What are you going to do if the problem you're trying to solve requires you to specify conditions in a nested way? What are you going to do? Are you going to pretend it's not nested and do something ugly that's not nested? It doesn't make sense. All right. So why did my destructor extend? This is what I get for not having a real Emacs mode. Yeah. All right, so when we send a message, we have this procedure called send message. And this just has the name of the message that we're sending and where to go if we fail to pattern match, any of these conditions. The thing is, I am not currently passing a time here. And I guess I feel like the easiest thing to do right now is to pass a time just as another explicit parameter. But I also feel like later on, it might turn into something else. Like we might put something on animation state that has information that different nodes in the animation graph might want to look at to determine where to go. But I like only factoring things like that once we have a very concrete problem to solve, and we don't yet. So I don't exactly know what the right abstraction is. So I'm going to do a thing that doesn't scale, right, which is just put the argument here. And I'm going to make it I think default node name is optional, so I'm going to put it here and make it be non-optional. Oh wait, no, send message. Okay, hold on. Hold my horses. Send message comes from people who are not necessarily thinking about animation at all. So to make them think about animation enough, horrible Windows beep, to make them think about animation enough to get that time is maybe not right. Let's go look. Apparently there's only one place that it comes from, or one file. Send message. Right, so we do all this. And this is just a helper function for that. And that's it. So I'm actually not going to pass it as a parameter. I'm going to do this internally to send message. And I'm just going to do it if we get a time condition, because why not? And we'll factor that out if that's not the right way to do it. So for every node, we look at an arc. And for every arc, we look at the message. And we'll say except is true if except we do this, right? So if arc.condition is equal to, right, case none, do nothing, case arc.time interval, well, we do something now. Let's make sure that compiles. It does. All right, so if it's a time interval, then we say T is get primary, get time of primary animation. Do we have enough? I don't think we can get there from here. No, we can't, because state, right? State has a pointer to the guy, I think. Oh, animation state is here. Yeah, it has a pointer to an enemy, an entity, not an enemy. So we go state.entity here. We get the time of the primary animation. And if t is greater than or equal to, did we call it time 0? Arc at time 0 and, or no, if time is less than arc time 0 or time is greater than arc.time 1, then except equals false, right? And if we don't accept, then we won't do this, and we'll just skip this arc and continue in the loop. So if there's another one with a different time interval, we'll hit that arc. So now we just need to define this routine. So we say get time of primary animation is e entity to float and bool, because we're going to return success. Let's make that explicit. Time is a float and success is a bool. Success. I cannot type today. Success. All right. So what do we do? So animator, or right. So maybe it has an animation player. Oh, does base entity have an animation player? Maybe those are only on guy and monster right now. Let me see. Animation player. I don't think so. Okay. So if there's no animation player, we're just going to return 0 and false, because who cares? That shouldn't happen. Whatever. And if there's no channels, otherwise, for no. We want to go backwards, right? We want to go backwards for the channels. Now we're just going to do this because we don't need that. We're going to go backwards on the channels, and we're going to say something, and if we don't, then we'll return 0 false, right? If it dot, let's go to animation channel. If it dot type is so whatever the last animation is in the sequence is like our primary animation. It's although maybe so if it's an animation, then return cast float it dot current time true. Well, let's see what happens. Didn't complain. Who knows what this means in terms of... All right, too slow. So it's picking active right all the time. I don't know about this. I want to see some active lefts here. I don't see any active lefts. Of course, I sort of put in a random number. Sort of put in a random number for the animation time, and so it might just be that the animation is really... I'm not putting the animation, the current time in the animation on the HUD. So it may just be if the whole animation is less than half a second, then we'll never get to it. So let's make 0.1 be the thing. I don't know. Ah, we got a left. Okay. So it appears to be working. Like if I stop after a short amount of time, I get a right. If I wait till the left foot is up, then I get a left. Okay. But I should probably draw what time in the animation it is, just so that we can test this, because I want to be able to see, like, okay, if I let up on it when it's... I mean, I'm pretty confident it works, but if people are going to want to debug this, then we need to... Anyway, so that's the main functionality. Any questions about that before we start drawing debug information? Any questions? People are talking about static analysis. These videos are being saved on YouTube. They're in a big series. I have a whole playlist called Game Engine Programming that has these. Why are messages strings and not enums? Is it for flexibility before you know exactly what messages you could have? So yeah, I did it that way initially for flexibility, and it turns out already, you know, the animator wants to be able to add new messages without, you know, just to experiment with stuff without asking me. And so it's good that I made it a string. And so actually one thing we did off stream, it only was 5 minutes of work, but I did a thing where you can type in, for example, message, go state inactive, right? And it'll just send this message to all the characters. Boom, right? So it doesn't have to be programmed into the game. So if you just add something here that says, you know, message pick my nose, do whatever, then you can just say message pick my nose here, right? And it'll work. So it's good that I did it as a string and didn't follow the programmer impulse to just do it as an enum. Do I think I will implement a single for function call? This is kind of an off-topic question. Ask it sometime later when we're doing programming language stuff. Oops. Name guy says, wait, which animations could you possibly randomize in time? I don't understand the question. Yeah, this one's roughly lined up. So if I stop walking with my right foot forward, then we get, oh, almost, hold on. Right foot forward, no, that was left. Right, there we get right, and left we get left. Yeah. So my 0.1 seconds was a good guess. Am I considering transforming artist strings into enum code via a compiler built into the toolset? Well, if I were to do something like that, why not go all the way and just compile this whole state machine into source code, right? And just have the source code be there. I don't know if I care that much because this is never going to be a performance bottleneck on this game, but we could do that. You know, why not? You thought you were randomizing some duration of time. No, this isn't random. So what we just did is not random. This time here says, based on what time in the animation walking cycle we're in, then we'll go to a different node, right? Depending on whether we're between 0 and 0.1 or later, right? So this is completely deterministic. It's just letting us pick different ways to go based on what time it is in the animation. Okay, I want to draw what time it is just so I could verify and just so I can set this time appropriately for the animator. So let me do that. Let's go back. This is now kind of becoming the animation HUD stream, which I broke into a separate series of things. Where was that? That was in source animation HUD. All right, and we had something like going to the left. And you know what? I feel like I'm going to stick this stuff to the right. And we might have many columns. So I'm going to say highest time column width. And now I'm going to really abuse this backslash. I don't know if this backslash is going to be, I don't know if it's funny or helpful or what, but I'm going to use it for a while and just see how it works out. Oh, okay. For time column lines, whoop. So we're adding a time column, and we're also going to temporary storage this stuff. And it dot current time trailing width equals 3. Maybe format float wants a float 32. So let's just see what's going on. Nope, that compiled. All right. So we say x1 plus equals, yeah. I'm going to say time column x is x1, and then x1 plus equals okay. We need this to survive the scope. Time column x is a float. Okay, I'm just going to paste this, and I'm going to say time column lines. I don't know, maybe that's right. I just kind of did that on autopilot. Draw text. Draw text. Oh, because I replaced, yeah. Get a dumb search and replace. Integer versus float in argument 2. Wait, what is fx? Yeah. See what happens. All right. Well, just about. It's actually not so great drawing it on the right because it pops around, but and I need an extra margin on the right, but all right. So if I'm walking, hold on. I'm just getting so distracted. Let me run to the left here. Okay. So if I start walking, I'm going to wait till this finishes and we're in the active idle. I guess, okay. Okay, we're in the active idle. So now we go. Okay. It's a little confusing because, whoops, I'm doing time the wrong way. So there's two animations that kick in, right? There's the idle to walking and then the walking. And what I want to see is the walking animation. So if I stop walking too soon, I'm still in the idle to walking animation, which is a different case that we're not working on. So idle to move forward. There we go. Now we've got move forward. Yeah, so 0.2. Well, now it's looping. Oh, I see. Yeah, so the legs pass at about 0.13. Let's see if it loops again. Oh, about 0.1 actually. The legs cross at almost exactly 0.1. And I just accidentally exited the level. All right, let's just add a margin. It's an amazingly good guess, 0.1. All right, there we go. UI programming. And let's compile it to LLVM again. Am I using deferred rendering or just forward? It is forward rendering. Most people these days do forward rendering in new engines. Deferred rendering is a little bit of an old idea at this point. Sometimes people still do it, or sometimes people do a thing called forward plus, which is a little bit of deferred, but mostly forward. I don't know, maybe someone highly opinionated will disagree with that, but yeah. Can the game window resize correctly? I think so. I fixed that at one point, so let's find out. Shoop. Yeah. Of course, Windows is not, yeah. Let's give it a really challenging aspect ratio. I mean, in a case like that, there's only so much you can do. There we go. I guess if we detect, like, screens that we would run on in nature are generally not higher than wide. So I guess we could detect that the scene is higher than wide. But it's still correct in the sense that like the image is not distorted or anything. You just can't see the whole play field. So we set the field of view right now based on vertical. We set the vertical field of view and then we figure out the horizontal field of view from that, which is a good strategy if your window is wider than it is high. Other than that, it's not necessarily a good strategy. So if we ever like ran on an iPhone vertically, we would switch it, although I don't know why you would ever do that in this game. Someone's saying Hummus is saying mobile screens are higher than wide. Yeah, but like if you run this game on a phone, we would say rotate your phone because the game is designed, all the levels are going to be laid out so that they're wide, right? So if we rendered correctly on a high screen like that by fitting it, there would be massive empty space on the top and bottom and your image would be tiny, right? So I think we just wouldn't do that. I think we would say rotate your phone, bro. Okay. Well, let me look up what the other feature was. I'm going to take a minute or two and go through my email because there was another smaller feature that the animator was asking for, and I will take a look at that and see if I can think about how to do it. Hey Hummus, did you win Steven's sausage roll yet? Or are you a loser? Oh, you're on the last world. Oh, that's good though, because it means you made it through a lot of hard stuff. Okay. Very good. Yeah, I've been playing some PlayerUnknown Battlegrounds as well. I know how it goes. There's a Spy Party tournament? I mean, Spy Party has been early access style out for a long time. You know, not on Steam or anything, but just downloadable. It's not in full release at this time. Community-run Spy Party League. Any thoughts on Qt? I don't know. I mean, I think all those GUI libraries are bad news. I think you want to use an immediate mode GUI library. All right. So So. Trying to find the right email. This one, maybe. I see. Okay, so yeah. So I lost the email again. Where is it? What he wants is the ability to control blend time in more cases than we have. So if you saw the previous stream, then you saw that for animations that end, right, we say how long before the end to transition into the next animation. So for example, here for the active to inactive, we say, look, when you're going to finish, go to state inactive with this much time, right? Like 0.2 seconds before you're done, go to state inactive, and over that 0.2 seconds, we blend between this that we were already playing and the next animation. Okay, the problem with this is that it's limited because we can only say this on non-looping animations, right? This is like, oh, when the animation is naturally going to finish, do this. But an animation that's looping and that wants to transition into another one, we want to be able to say how long the blend takes. So for example, here, we want to be able to say something like blend 0.1, right? Blend or 0.07. Whoops, whoa, I don't know what I did there. You know, and that's the number of seconds that it would take to blend. So basically, I'm going to add another command in the place where we just had for time, and it's going to control a blend factor, and then I just need to coordinate how to use that blend factor. But let's work on loading it from the file first, because that's like half the battle. Did I check in? Yeah. Okay, let's go back here. Whoa. Okay, I asserted. That's weird because I thought that I should report that error correctly. So this is good. We're testing our error reporting code, and it didn't quite work. So let's look at that. We asserted that the command name is not whatever. Maybe our string to float is not. I'm going to say let's get rid of this. Okay, well, it still has the commands. This is weird. Wait, and what's the assert? Huh. That's weird. Oh. Right. We have to eat spaces on this guy. I forgot to eat spaces. What is it called? Eat spaces, yeah. So, you know, we've chopped some words off, but there might be spaces between our thing and the next thing. Although, rather than, because if we do this here, we would have to do it on every command, and that's error prone. So instead, we'll just say have had non-space characters in the string, or we would not have gotten here. All right, so we loaded that time. All right, so unknown command blend, and then my old prints are there. Let me get rid of my, I didn't put a new line here. All right. So unknown command blend, that is good. So now, here we handle time, and we will handle blend. And this will be a simpler version of time. We'll say if we didn't have success, have a window open because it's warm in Seattle and there's an alarm going by, so I'm just going to ignore it. I'm able to parse the argument to blend as a floating point number. All right. That's fine. Otherwise, arc.blend duration set equals true. I will check for redundant things. Arc.blend duration equals float A. If okay, so we got to add these. So cool. So that ought to compile and run, and we're just not using the blend duration yet. Yeah. So let's print that we're successfully using it. I got to get rid of this at some point. All this output. I am not seeing it. I am not seeing it. What is going on? Let's do this. All right. Well, we're getting there. Oh, I am a dummy. I am a dummy. I hope someone caught this. Subversion is launched by the engine because the editor uses it to check in game assets and stuff. So we do a little test sequence at startup, and I should be like catching the output of that and sending it nowhere so it doesn't go to the console, but I'm not doing that right now. Okay, so I'm a dummy because this should be like that and that. What was I even thinking? Okay, blend duration 0.07. That is what we wanted to see. So, this is good. Now we just have to use this. We just have to use this. So, when we use the arc down here, we have a destination, and we say switch to node. That needs to know the time. Okay, so that has a fade time. So we'll just set that to -1. It would be cool if I could do something like the following. Fade time is default value of switch to node fade time, or whatever. Like you look up an identifier argument in a procedure and gets the default value. I could program something like this myself with metaprogramming, and maybe I should just do that. I don't know, man. Okay. Okay, so if accept, if arc.fade, blend duration set, fade time equals arc.blend duration. See, this is weird because I did it two different ways. One way, -1 means it's not set. And the other way, we have this Boolean. So maybe I should just have it be -1. I probably will do that. Okay. So how do we know if this is working? Like it should fade in and out faster. Yeah. Oh, did you see how fast that fade went? Boom. So a normal fade, okay, I just slowed down time, but like, let's 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. Well, let me get all the way to walking. Wow, the animation's just never even, all right, so we're moving forward. 1, 2. Yeah, so that's a much shorter blend than this one. 1, 2, 3, 4. So that seems to be working. My inclination is to toss it over the wall to the animator. Actually, we could make it ridiculous. We could like, because all this is hot loaded, we could go like, it's super fast, right? So I go back over here. So I just want to get walking all the way. And now we cut it off and bloop. Oh, did you see how fast that blended? It's ridiculous. All right. Bloop. Yeah. So that is obviously too fast of a blend, but it's a good test. And if we go blend 700, well, no, that's going to be ridiculous. 3, that'll be a ridiculously slow blend that we'll see forever. I'm blending between an animation and itself. It's goofy. All right. Oh, it's going to be blending forever. Look how he's still running. It's because the move forward still has a factor of 7, 0.6, 0.5. Oh, why did it? Okay. The reason, so if you saw, it changed discontinuously there. And the reason it changed discontinuously is because we gave it a blend duration that is longer than the actual time of the animation. So the animation finished and we weren't even blended all the way to it, and it switched to something else. I'm inclined not to put in a safeguard for that because it's probably never going to happen in real life, but if we need it, if it comes up, then I can detect that situation and issue warnings or whatever. All right. Yeah. All right. I think I'm done for this stream. Are there any questions about what happened? Are the default values part of the type info? It seems to me that'd be a convenient place for them. They're not exactly. No, because it's a long story. We'll talk about that on a language stream. It's esoteric enough that I don't want to get into it on a game engine stream. What happened to the idle animation? Shouldn't there be an idle animation? Wait, what? Did I mess something up? An idle animation where? You mean here? There is an idle animation. It's just really subtle. Like if you see he's moving a little bit, right? We're playing Warrior Active Idle 01. If you mean when I'm walking, we're playing that animation, right? So is that what you guys are talking about, or was there some case in which it stopped working? Is there a bug? Or is it just that people don't? Am I done with work for today? Well, I may be done with what I'm going to stream for today. I'm not done with work for today. Only happens in the other level. I don't know what that means. Oh yeah, too subtle. Yeah, I mean, the idle animation is super subtle right now. We'll probably put more character into it. It's just right now we're mostly testing the overall poses and things. So we're not getting really picky about what happens during that. Your blend switch case falls through. No, we do not have fall through in this language. So if you mean this one, that does not fall through. There is no fall through unless you explicitly ask for it. Yeah. No, I don't like that behavior in C and C++, so I fixed it. All right, everybody, thanks for coming to the stream. This will be posted to YouTube later if you missed any of it. And I'm going to go take a break and then do some more things. So, see you later.